be answering any questions y'all have about data, data engineering, data science, artificial intelligence, LLMs, whatever you want to be answered. I will answer your questions. Just drop them in the chat. So I'm doing a Q&A right now. If anyone has any questions or thoughts or opinions on anything, I am here to answer y'all's questions. I'm really excited to see what kind of questions come in. I'm going to be looking on a couple different screens here. I'm hoping I can get some more stuff because it seems like X kind of doesn't come through sometimes, but I know LinkedIn does. So if y'all have any questions or thoughts or opinions on anything, I'm all open for that. I love to talk. I love to oh, can we put an overlay here? That's pretty cool. There we go. So like, if anyone has any questions, go ahead and just drop them in the comments, and we can definitely get to every question, at least for the next while. I'm gonna be here for like, I don't know, maybe an hour or 2 hours. So like, go ahead, drop away. I'm really excited for to answer anyone's questions here. Oh yeah, hi Adam, how's it going? I'm glad you're here. This is great. I'm really excited just for everyone in this community and all the support that I get. Like, it's really incredible. Like, I'm always stunned by how many people are able to like show up and support and just bring all of their energy. What's up, Hendrik? How's it going? So yeah, I'm doing a Q&A. So if y'all have any questions, you can go ahead and just drop them in the chat and we can go do it. Would data engineering be affected by AI? Yes, every profession will be affected by AI. You need to use Flink over Spark when you have a real-time process, right? So if you have something that needs very, very low latency, then that's where it's going to be. I mean, it's a little bit different now. Like, no audio. Let me change this real quick. Okay, fine. Can we just go with like, why is this not picking up? Come on. Okay, let's freaking unplug and plug that back in. One second, y'all. We should be. Y'all can probably hear me right now, but I love it when it's on the freaking, when it's like actually the good mic, right? So is it gonna actually pick it up now? Okay, there it is. Awesome. Sorry about that, y'all. There we go. So yeah. Okay. So what's up, y'all? Yeah. Okay. So let's go through some more questions here. So yeah, Flink and Spark, like low latency. Spark streaming is getting there, right? It's getting there. So like, I mean, it's kind of similar. There, like the differences between the two aren't as pronounced as they used to be. So that's something that's good. So let's go to some other questions here. What are your thoughts on learning Databricks, especially with companies? Yeah, learn Databricks. Do it. Like, just learn Databricks. Like, yes, like it's gonna be, Databricks is gonna blow up. Like, own like company models. Annoying right now without the freaking. We'll just do it with the shitty mic. All right, y'all. We'll just do it with the garbage mic. Yeah. You should be able to hear now, right? I'm pretty sure. Like, let's freaking go to audio. Yeah. You can definitely hear. I can see that you can hear it. So, anyways, let's go and see what's going on here. So let's go and say this. Ever heard term analytics engineer? Ben Substack article. That's a terrible question. How do you see data engineering evolving in the next 2 years? That's a great one. So like, I think there's a couple different things that are going to happen with data. Oh, I can do that too, right? There we go. I need to actually use this freaking feature. So data engineering is definitely going to evolve a lot over the next 2 years. I think that there's going to be a couple things. Like, one is you're going to see more platforms, and I think there's going to be less of a focus on like Docker and DevOps shit, because more and more companies are going to be using Databricks and Snowflake and the cloud. That transition is just continuing to happen, and you got to like get ready for that transition. So that's great, because then you can actually focus more on data, right? Then you can focus as opposed to like focus on the other innovative companies are going to be doing that. Like, what the hell? Now my freaking audio is disconnected audio. Like, what the hell, dude? This is like broken. Like, it is like, what is going on right now? Okay, can I? That's freaking dumb, dude. I don't get what's going on with my freaking setup. Like, it's probably back, but we'll just keep going. If this doesn't, if it keeps doing this, I'm just gonna kill the stream. But like, anyways, like, let's go to another question here. Seems like the audio just goes out for a few seconds, then comes back in. Yeah. Okay. Let's find someone. How do you prepare for system design round? Like, considering I spent a lot of time writing code but not modeling. Yeah. Like, so how do you prepare for the system design round? You do that in a couple different ways. Like, one is learn about CAP theorem, learn about strongly consistent systems versus like, base. You have acid and then you have base. Those two concepts like are very, very important. If you can learn those concepts and understand how data stores actually interact and serve data, you're going to be able to be in a much better spot. But like, obviously, like, how do you prepare for this stuff? Like, read books, right? Alex Zhu's book on the system design interview is really, really good. So I highly, highly recommend that one. So I think that that's going to be probably where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck. Okay, I'll answer this question, even though I get this question every single day. Just wanted to ask how much DSA you need to know to break into data engineering, not talking about FANG. It depends. It depends. Like, because guess how many interviews I'm not the master of data engineering interviews and like what is going to be the best thing to use and what's not the best thing to use. So like, generally speaking, you should know it. And it's not that hard to learn. Data structures and algorithms is not hard to learn. You can learn it and get good at it in 3 to 6 months. Like, so people are just like so scared of it for some stupid reason. And it's like not really that freaking hard to learn, right? Was big data a fad that passed or did it morph into AI? Well, I mean, I think that there's a couple different things here. Data engineering used to be all about scale, just like, because that used to be, because you have the 3 V's, right? You have volume, variety, and velocity, right? Volume, variety, velocity. And I think there was a big, back in the day, like in the Hadoop era, that volume, like tackling volume was the hardest part. And so that's why big data was the word. But now volume is easy, right? Spark can process petabytes easily, right? So big data doesn't really matter anymore. It's a lot more about the other two, right? You have variety and velocity. So like, that's why Flink and streaming and real-time data is kind of like hot. And that's also why like master data management and like large scale integrations, right? With for variety is also very hot. And also variety is hot in a different way. Like when you have unstructured data, like video and audio, and think about like multimodal AI, right? That's all like video, audio stuff. And that's like a different variety of data. So like there's been a shift, like, but big data, at least when I was taught, it was the 3 V's of big data, volume, variety, velocity, and those 3 V's, like, and so like, really it's still there. It's just shifted to the other V's, right? And like, and honestly, it will probably never come back to like that other problem because distributed compute has kind of solved the volume problem. It's pretty intense. Like, I really like how the volume problem has kind of just, Spark just makes it so easy now, right? It's freaking nuts. Okay, here's a good one. How do I transition from being a DevOps engineer to a data engineer? Learn SQL, learn Python, learn data modeling, learn Spark, learn Airflow. If you learn those technologies, you'll be a lot closer, right? You probably know some of that, right? And like DevOps is also, they are pretty good at Bash, and Bash is like the glue that kind of connects everything together, right? So yeah. Let's see here. I'll answer this question, even though I hate it. Will AI reduce data analyst engineer roles? No, it won't. And here's why. Like, the demand for more data and the demand for more insights is growing faster than there is negative pressure there, and roles will go away. But you got to understand that like the upward pressure of like how many roles are growing and how roles are being built in, there's more pressure there, like more upward pressure than downward pressure, right? Because it's like, that's going to be the big thing about it, right? And so like, and you got to understand like AI uses data, right? And so if you're a data engineer and you can produce high quality data, you will always have a job like in the era of AI. Will your job change? 100%. Your job might be shifted more to being around like vector databases and more text and multimodal data, and less about like analytics and group by and metrics. And it's going to kind of shift in that way. And that is going to be like kind of a shift that I think a lot of data engineers are actually going to find very unsettling, and it's going to definitely cause a separation there. There will be a new role that exists that is just focused on like that, specifically on like fine tuning, RAG, LLM, high quality ingest. How do you scrape data from the internet and determine if it's high quality? Because like if it's just like text data, it's very hard. It's a very difficult problem when like you're just working with a blob of text, because there's like, what do you use to determine if it's high quality? That's like, it's a very, and there's gonna be a lot of innovation in that space, because, you know, AI and ML and LLMs and all that stuff, they hallucinate a lot right now. And one of the reasons they hallucinate so much is because like OpenAI and these companies, they don't do a great job at filtering the garbage out of their scrape when they're scraping the data and they're pulling it from Reddit and they're pulling it from all these places. Like they don't do a great job of like removing the garbage. And so like that process of like removing the garbage from the training set is something that's going to have data engineers have a very long trajectory. Like it's like you want to be like able to just recognize that that's going to be good, right? Oh, this is a great question. Shifting gears. When you get JSON response from an API when doing ELT, should you overwrite the previous export in the data lake each time or save it as a new timestamp file each time? Save it as don't overwrite. Like you want to hold on to history, right? You want to hold on to as much history as you can, especially because API responses are like, you can't like replicate them again, right? So you want to always hold on to all API responses, because you can't like backfill. You can't really backfill an API response. So you want to always do it in like a partition data set, like based on whatever, usually like depending on how often you're pinging the API. If it's once a day, daily partitioned, maybe you want to do hourly or like smaller than that. But like, yeah, that's going to be the main thing, right? So yeah, do you cover VectorDB in your bootcamp? Yes, we are covering VectorDB in the last week of the bootcamp. It's currently not a required section for certification because I don't believe that it's like there's not enough demand for it quite yet in the data engineering space, but I do think that that will change over time. And I do imagine future iterations of my bootcamp where vector databases will be a required concept, but it's not required right now. So, okay, this is a great one. How to get noticed on LinkedIn as a data scientist or data engineer. Have a good profile, like have like fill out all of the sections. Like one of the things that I think a lot of people forget to do is like they think like, okay, I can just have like a kind of a shitty profile, like, or like you don't even have a profile picture. Like if you just do the basics, like profile picture, a good experience section where you have like a filled out, thorough experience section. Those two things are already going to get you really far. Then like a good about section is great. And then getting endorsements is going to be the next thing, like for skills and stuff. And then another important thing is recommendations. If you can get like, that was one thing I did back like 10 years ago was I asked all my former employers for a recommendation. And that gave me the kind of the way to do it. So someone's asking, this is a great question. Do you have a data engineer bootcamp? Where can I find it? So yes, I do. It's called dataexpert.io. So dataexpert.io. That's where you can find it. Or if you just Google Data Expert, you can find my Data Expert Academy. So, okay, this is a good one. Everyone you use with Column and Spark, is it creating a new data frame in memory? Yes, it is, because Spark is immutable, right? So like you can't like update the data frame, right? Every time you do a transformation on a data frame, it creates a new data frame, right? That's literally how it works, right? And so like, but like it's fine because like Spark is evaluated lazily. So a lot of times, like if that other data frame is not used downstream, then what you're doing is you're dropping that data frame and picking up a new one. And like, and I love that your name is Barack Obama. That's freaking, it's freaking insane, right? Okay, let's see here. Oh, this is a good one. Is data engineering roles expected to surpass software engineering roles in terms of demand? No. Main reason for that is because like not every company needs data pipelines, but every company needs a website. Every company needs like an app and a website, and every startup, like you're going to start every startup. The first engineer hire is going to be a software engineer. The first engineer hire is never going to be a data engineer ever. And so like, because of that, like that one aspect, like you have to see that like software engineering is always going to be 10 times bigger than data engineering, like always, right? That's going to be the way to do it. Right. So, well, that's a great question. So why are you running bootcamp instead of data consultant agency? Because students are nicer and kinder than clients, right? And like I personally don't really like I left Airbnb to not do data engineering anymore, right? And it's like, why would I like do it again, right? Why would I like go? I mean, I've been considering doing an agency where I win contracts and then I pass it to my bootcamp students. So then all I have to do is negotiate contracts and then they deliver all the implementations, because like I think I could make me and a bunch of people very rich doing that, and it wouldn't be that much work for me. I think the reason why I didn't start with a data consultant agency is because like I don't like that work. I don't want to work as just an individual engineer on projects, right? Right. Okay, this is a great question. How much would you take to go back to 9 to 5? So I would need about $2 million a year. I think if a company was like, hey, Zach, we'll pay you $2 million a year, I think they would be able to get me for some time, right? Okay, this is a good one. Do you have any thoughts on Spark's data frame versus dataset API? I have tons of opinions about this. So data frame is going to be the one that's a lot more popular because you can use it in PySpark and in Scala Spark, and it's great. It's really good. The dataset API is what Airbnb was all about. Airbnb was like, you have to use the dataset API. And the reason for that is because the dataset API is much better for like unit and integration testing. But the problem with the dataset API is you have to do Scala. You only can dataset API. And because of that's a big minus for some things, right? Right. So that's going to be another big thing, right? This is a good question. Are most data engineers former software engineers? No. Data engineers, generally speaking, they come from a couple different backgrounds. Like, so I've definitely found like when, I've taught over 1,000 data engineers over the last year, and I've learned a lot from like where they came from. A big one is a lot of people come from data analyst, actually, because going from data analyst to data engineer, you make more money. Going from software engineer to data engineer, like a lot of times, like it's the same, or like there's not as much of an increase going from software engineer to data engineer. There are a lot of software engineers who are data engineers, like me. That's my transition. I did that transition, and I find that like if you want to become like the highest paid data engineer, like the data engineers that make 500, 600, 700K, they almost all came from software engineering backgrounds, because like you have to have that like software engineering fundamentals, or you have to pick it up. You have to pick it up later, and that's going to be the way that you do it, right? All right, this is good. How long usually it took to learn PySpark, considering you already know Python? I would give yourself 3 to 6 months to do that, right? I think that that's going to be the right way to go, and I think that that's going to be probably the kind of timeline to really kind of understand it and really get deep into the details. But keeping in mind, it's like how long, it depends on how many hours a day that you're putting into it. So if you're putting 10 hours a week into it for 3 to 6 months, you will get to a point where like you probably feel like you know most of it. Right. This person says, you're such a nasty person airing people's CVs online to make fun of. I asked that person for permission and they said it was totally fine. So I'm not a nasty person, actually. Is it possible to do data science without PhD or master's in statistics? Yes. You can have a master's or PhD in something else. Like I know a lot of people who have a master's or PhD in like math or like computer science, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of options there. But like most people in data science do have a master's degree though. Like that's one of the things that I think there's a lot of like push in industry to be like, hey, like we don't need master's degree for data science anymore. But like literally every single data scientist I've ever worked with has had a master's or a PhD, like 100%, all of them. Right. And most of the data engineers I've worked with also have a master's degree. Like I'm actually kind of unique in that way that I don't have a master's degree, but I do have a dual major bachelor's, which is like kind of like a master's degree. So like, I don't know. Let's see here. Okay. This is a good one. Best free website to practice SQL questions. Mine. So if you go to dataexpert.io/questions, dataexpert.io/questions, there's like 100 SQL questions that you can use to practice. It's not quite as good as like LeetCode and stuff like that yet, but like we're iterating on it and making it better. And I'm really excited to see where it goes. Right. Let's see here. This is a good one. How to choose between data science and data engineering, considering you're from software engineering background. Just do data engineering then. Just do data engineering. Like if you like software engineering, then you'll like data engineering more, right? Yeah, Taha, it is free. My dataexpert.io, the SQL practice questions are 100% free. Yes. So you can definitely go there and check it out. I want more people to do it, right? Okay. How do you keep consistent about posting every day? I make a commitment to myself. It's very similar to like going to the gym, right? Where it's like, I'm going to go to the gym and make an investment every day and win the reach of the day. because it's like I have to have that reach, because if I don't have that reach, my business dies, right? So it's like you really need to be putting out content every day, because like otherwise someone else gets the view. That's not good. It's not as good, right? Okay. Let's see here. Okay, this is a good one. In order to become a data engineer, is it better for me to become a data analyst first, then move to data engineer, or should I become a data engineer first? It depends on what your background is. I don't know. Like, it really depends. Like, if you have a computer science degree, just go to data engineering first. It doesn't matter. Like, if you have a different background, then probably do a data analyst first, because like if you don't have that engineering background, like starting as a data analyst is a good way to go. But there's so many different ways that you can get into the data engineering field. So like the one thing that kind of is difficult about data engineering is that there's not that many junior roles. So like a lot of times, like for me, like I kind of started in a more software engineering role doing like mobile app development to like get my technicals up and running, and then became a data engineer. But I started in like mobile development because there was a lot of demand. Like 10 years ago, when everyone was like trying to make the next Flappy Bird and shit like that, there was like, it was like anyone who knew 2 lines of Java could get a mobile development job, right? And so let's see here. This is a good one. My work is related to analytics side of data engineering, and if I want to improve my skills in the other aspects of data engineering, do you think taking your bootcamp in the future will help me? 100%. I think that like my bootcamp will help you a lot on the infrastructure side, like how to get good at Spark, how to get good at Kafka, how to get good at data modeling, how to understand Iceberg and data lakes and compression and all those kind of things. Those are the pieces. And then my bootcamp also has the analytics side of it as well, right? So, I like this question from Kevin. Kevin's one of my best friends. What's been the most challenging thing about leaving the 9-to-5 life to build your own business? I think for me, loneliness has been a really hard problem for me, because like, you know, when you work a job, a 9-to-5 job, you just have all these people that are just built into your life, and they're just there and interacting, right? And you're able to just have all these friends and this structure in place that like really makes it easy. I think that's a part of it. I think the other part of it is that like inconsistent income, right? There's some days where there's going to be days where I make $50,000 in one day, and then there's some days where I make $10, right? And it's like, damn, like, and it's like such a like dichotomy. And then sometimes I feel like, especially when I have like multiple like $10 days in a row, I'm like, damn, I'm broke, I'm poor. I'm not gonna make it. I'm slowly becoming irrelevant. Right. So that's something I'm trying to shift. I think that like a part of that is just my business structure. I want to shift things where I have more like MRR, where I have like just monthly recurring things where people pay me every month. So I don't have to worry about that as much, where every day I do have like a kind of a guaranteed amount of income. I think that those are the two things. I think loneliness and inconsistent income are going to be the two that have been kind of crazy. All right, I'll do this one. How can I get a data engineer job in a FANG company? Is past experience required? What other skills are necessary? Yeah, probably past experience is required, unless you have have like Stanford on your resume or Berkeley on your resume, then you're going to have previous experience. Like for me, I had 2 years of experience at startups before I got in at Facebook. And so that's going to be great. I mean, definitely get good at data structures and algorithms, right? That's going to be the other big part, right? This is a good question. How do you keep yourself motivated and not discouraged on those by those $10 days? A couple things. Like one is I invest in my well-being and happiness, and I'm like, okay, this is like I need to make sure to do my yoga and do my body work every day and like really invest in my happiness. But on the other side, I'm like, that means I'm not selling enough. Like sometimes like when I get to do a $10 day, what happens is I do a live and then I talk with people and I get more views. It pushes me to make more content. Right? Because I'm like, I know I need to get more reach because I need to convert more, right? That's going to be probably the other thing I kind of do is like, that's usually a signal that I'm not like converting or pushing enough content out, right? So, okay. Say here. Okay, what data infrastructure you recommend for e-commerce startup? Postgres. Just something really basic, like you don't need like Spark, Kafka, freaking data lake, Iceberg. You don't need all the crazy shit at the beginning, right? You can freaking start with like really basic stuff. Like my data infrastructure for my startup was just Postgres up until like 2 months ago, right? So like that's going to be a big thing about it, right? I think that that's going to be probably a way to think about it. Just start with basics, right? Just walk before you run. That's going to be one of the most important parts of the journey, right? This is a good one. Are startups a good way to get your foot in the door in terms of junior data engineer? Yes. You want to be careful there, though, in some regards, because like you even need a data engineer, so you might be doing other shit as well. So like it can be a good place to get your first engineering job. I definitely think that's 100% true. I'm not as much like I found that like data engineering roles are very interesting on how you like actually get into them. But okay, let's see here. Us. Okay, I'll answer this one. Should I apply for data analyst role instead of BI analyst roles if I want to eventually? That no, like I was a BI analyst, right? I actually did that for a while too. Like data analyst and BI analyst is like the same job. You both do Tableau and Power BI. It's the same fucking job. So like there's no difference. There's no difference between those roles in my opinion. There's no difference. So like just use the one that you want to use, right? All right. What really boosted your career, income, reputation exponentially so far? You noticed creating content every single. So I think a couple things here. One was creating content every single day. Two was getting the job at Netflix. Like there was a couple points in my life. Like so in 2019 or no 2018 is when I had a double. I had a 100% raise in 2018 when I jumped from Facebook to Netflix. I got a 100% raise. And then last year, I got a 100% raise as well, going from like 600K to like 1.1, 1.2 million when I made the jump from Airbnb to doing my own business. So 2018 and 2023, those are the two times like a 100% raise, and I doubled up. And so like I would say those are going to be the two those. So that's probably like my signal and like what I would say, right? Pipeline orchestration started. Yeah, learn Mage. Mage is pretty great. I would say Mage is going to be like really easy to set up. It's easier to set up than Airflow, and like I would highly recommend that. But like if you've never done orchestration before, maybe start with Cron. Cron is probably going to be another really solid way to go. I would say those are going to be the two. I'll answer this question. I have a controversial take on this one: leading or trailing comma. I am team trailing comma. Like I mean, like because I think that trailing commas look more like English, right? And you don't like start the query with a comma, and I just feel like leading commas look really ugly. And or I don't know if the order is. I want my column name comma. I don't want to put the comma at the beginning, right? I think, and that's like I feel like I'm in the minority there. Like I think that's one of those things that is the way it is, right? Okay, how important is Python in data engineering? Very important. Let's say here. I'll answer this one. Certification's worth it. So I only ever got one certification 10 years ago. I became a Hortonworks Hadoop certified Java developer, and I think that helped a tiny bit in getting the job at Facebook. I think my portfolio pieces were more important than the certification, though. Okay. How do you go about optimizing longer running stages? I'm guessing this is with Spark. So usually if there's going to be longer running stages, there's going to be a couple of things, a couple of symptoms. Like one is you just don't have enough parallelism. So you need to increase your partitions. So there's spark.sql.shuffle.partitions. You just need to crank up that number, and then you get more parallelism. That's one thing you can do. Another thing is like you might be skewed. So you might need to enable adaptive execution. Adaptive execution is really good for skewed stages. Another thing that might be happening here is your join might just be stupid. Like you might have a crazy join that like you need to minimize shuffle. So because shuffling can be very expensive, especially for high volume. So like in that case, like if, you know, increasing parallelism and enabling adaptive execution, if it's still a very long running thing, then I would highly recommend checking out a bucket join. So Spark has this thing called a bucket join that allows you have to bucket both sides ahead of time. But when you bucket both sides ahead of time, then you can join, and then the join will happen without shuffle. And it's great, right? What personal projects do you recommend for data engineering profile? Projects that you're interested in, projects that you were down to work on for an extended period of time. I'll give you an example. So I worked on a couple things. So you can check it out. I have a website called Halo Gods, halogods.com. I was obsessed with Halo 5, and I wanted to become the best in the world. So I wanted to do some analytics to understand who my best teammate should be. And I built out halogods.com to figure that out. And then I got to 15th in the world in freaking Halo 5. I was freaking crazy. I think that like you really want to work on projects that are like you can have sustained attention on, because otherwise because you don't want to do some dinky that where you download a Kaggle data set and you're like, hey, look at this cool little dashboard I made. Because like, you know, hiring people can see right through it. They can see right through it. They can see your lack of effort and your lack of investment, right? You have to spend time on it. Spend 100 to 200 hours on a project and then come back to me. So like the best personal project is a project that you can invest in and iterate on over a long period of time. So like that's going to be definitely the best way to go. Any recommendations for public APIs or data sets I could use for my project? There's like a weather API. I mean, I like the stock market APIs. You can get really cheap access to like stock market data. There's a website called Polygon where they pay, I think you have to pay like $10 a month, but then you can get like infinite access to freaking stock data. So like that's another thing you can do. Like there's all sorts of data sets. A lot of APIs are going to charge you just a little bit, and like just pay the $10, bro. Like if you're trying to build a good project, just pay the money. And you're investing in your career, and you'll get paid back because you're going to land a 6-figure data engineering job. So the $10 a month that you're paying, that you know what you should do? Cancel Netflix, pay for that, and change your fucking life, right? And then guess what? You won't even be spending more money, right? You'll actually like be able to be more focused, build your dreams, not spend more money, and make a lot more money. So that's definitely something to consider. Like let's say here. These questions are not that great. Like, let's see here. Oh, what about this one? I got this one. What about TypeScript in data engineering? I've used TypeScript 0% of my data engineering career. I love TypeScript. I love TypeScript a lot. TypeScript is really great. It's like a great language. I use TypeScript every single day in my startup. That's Data Expert is built on TypeScript. It's Next.js with TypeScript, and I love it for full stack development. For data engineering, it's just not used. It's just not used. So, I mean, this is great. Do you recommend Azure Cloud for the projects? Like, you can use whatever you want. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter if you use AWS or Azure or freaking GCP, or like you do it on the side and you run it on your personal laptop and you have something that keeps your laptop alive. Or keeps your laptop awake all the time. So then like it will just run and you can do orchestration like just on your laptop, because that's another way you can go. But like, I mean, I would recommend using a cloud, and Azure is great as well. It doesn't really matter that much. It's more about like, can you show that you know how to do good pipeline design? Can you show that you know how to build good data sets? And that stuff is cloud independent, right? It doesn't matter which cloud you pick. And that's one piece of wisdom I want to give to you all right now is, it doesn't really matter what technologies you pick. It's more about illustrating that you know the fundamentals, that you actually know what the hell you're doing and what you're talking about. And I think a lot of times people get so like paralyzed about like, I need to freaking know, I have to pick the absolute best technologies before I even start on this project. And that is the worst thing you can do. The best thing you can do is, everyone in this call right now, y'all should like start a project right now. Go make a GitHub repo and start something right now, like today, right? And just get the ball rolling, right? It's gonna be great. As this person, so when are you reducing the price of your bootcamp? I'm not. Like, my bootcamp, it provides $2,000 worth of value. There's been many people in my bootcamp who have gotten $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 raises, and so like I deserve a cut of that, right? So if you get a $40,000 raise and I charge you $200, that's not freaking like, what the hell? Like that's not how I run a business, right? So I offer discounts, PPP discounts for people in other countries, because I get that $2,000 in India and $2,000 in Pakistan and other places is not freaking good, right? It's very expensive. So like if in those cases, like Harpreet, reach out to me and I can probably get you in for a significant discount if you live in another country. Okay, this is a good one. Is experience in CI/CD or Docker apart from core data engineering necessary to get better? Definitely CI/CD, because data engineering, the quality bar has been much higher. Like the actual like need for software engineering fundamentals in data engineering is very, very important. And so like if you can unit test and integration test your pipelines so that like when you push a bug or you push a problem, like it breaks like if your pipeline breaks before you deploy to production, because you have a test in CI/CD that like runs your pull request. So then like you just prevent problems in production. That's a very, very powerful and very good thing to do to make a lot more money in data engineering, 100%. You said you went from software engineering to data engineering. What software engineering concepts do you think made you a better data engineer? One is knowing separation of concerns, knowing about modularity. If you know about solid code, SOLID, that's another freaking really important concept. One of my favorite concepts recently is this concept called YAGNI, which is you aren't going to need it. That's like freaking so good. If you look up that Yagni, Yagni, it's freaking such a solid, it's a very, very solid concept that I use in my startup culture. And like, it allows me to freaking deliver a lot more value in less time. So, and other things, CI/CD, unit testing, all that stuff as well is great. And also know that like I've done the jump between software and data a lot. So I did software engineering, then data engineering, then I went back to software engineering, then I went back to data engineering, then I went back to software engineering, and then I went back to data engineering. I did the hop. I went back and forth like 3 times in my career. It was like essentially every other job had to be the other one, right? Where like I just get like so sick of Spark and Airflow, and I'm like, fuck this shit. I need to go do something else. And then I would go do like Spring Boot and like back end development. And then I'd be like, wow, this is a lot. I'm like, I actually love data. And then I'd go back, right? And so that's what I did. Like that's the great thing about like technical careers is you can do whatever you want, right? That's pretty cool. All right. Say, is it possible to do free projects on AWS? Probably not. Like, I mean, you might be able to do it for cheap. I mean, you can ask AWS for credits and they will give you $1,000 in credits. Like, and they will just give it to you. And so like I did that and that helped a lot. That saved me a lot of money. Like I saved $1,000 that way. So like it's not free, but like if you have a small size project and you have $1,000 of credits from AWS that you can get for free, that is gonna that's gonna last that project a long time. That's gonna last that project a long, long time. Let's do this one. I'm interning at a small company this summer, and my friend is interning at Microsoft. Kill me. Microsoft sucks. Like I don't know, bro. Like I think that you are judging the race too early, right? So for me, you know, I never had an internship, right? I didn't have a single internship, and guess what? My a lot of my colleagues who did get internships at Facebook and all those other big tech companies, guess what? I got further along than them because guess what? Not getting that internship made me hungry. It made me want to prove to the world that I'm better, right? And that I'm gonna win, right? And guess what? That's what it did. And that made me freaking really powerful, right? So it's gonna be great, right? Okay, this is a great question. So if we sign up to your self-paced course, do we get access to your cloud database? Yeah, so my self-paced course, we cover Spark, we cover Kafka, and Iceberg. So my cloud database is not a database, it's a data lake. It's actually an Iceberg data lake on S3. And so, yeah, like you can get access to it. Like you could even get access to it like without, like I give access to this data lake for free if you want, like, but you can only use like the free access is only via Trino. So like you can do it from dataexpert.io/query and you can run queries on that. You can query the database like for free. For sure, because I have a partnership set up, so that compute is actually free for me. So it's a good question. How frequently should you hop jobs? I mean, if you're early in your career to every 2 years, I think you should shift that over time. Like you should shift from like every 2 years to like every 5 years. So probably every 2 years, like for your first 5 years, and then try to target every 5 years after that. That's probably going to be where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck. Obviously, I did it differently. My first 2 years, I hopped every 6 months, which was like a lot. That was a lot for me to do. And like I had 4 jobs in my first 2 years. But then I got in at Facebook. And then like for me, I've been doing every 2 years since then. And so like that's kind of like what I've been doing, right? Okay, this is a great question. Do you think it's bad to leave a job after a month? No, actually. Like, I mean, if you really feel like you need to leave, like if you've been getting a lot of information about that this company sucks, leave as soon as you can. Like it's better to leave after 1 month than to leave after 5. Because if you leave after 1 month, you can just like exclude it from your resume and just take your next one, right? And then that's going to be the whole idea, right? Here's a good one. Okay, so what is the duration of your course and is it enough time to master data engineering? So you have to have some prerequisites. Like if you don't know SQL and Python, my course is not really for you. You need to have at least a decent understanding of those two things. And the content is structured in a way that you should be able to complete it in 6 weeks. You can complete it in 6 weeks if you dedicate 15 to 20 hours a week on it. If you dedicate more like 10, it will probably take you 3 months. But you have access for a year. So you have a year to like to solve like to master everything, and that's how it works, right? And so also know if you buy the course, you have the option to upgrade to the live bootcamp. The next time I'm doing a live bootcamp, which should be near the beginning of next year, is when I'm thinking about doing my next live bootcamp. So yeah, I'm really excited for that as well. Okay, let's see this one. Okay, in your experience, how you see PySpark, because Python runs on top of Java and then it converts to Scala. So Scala has to be in first place, but PySpark is growing a lot, not Scala. What's your thoughts? Well, Scala is just hard to learn and it's super annoying. And like, it's like, so PySpark is better. Like, I mean, generally speaking, 90% of jobs are going to be written in PySpark and then 10% are going to be written in Scala. I have a very, like, nuanced take on this, because for me, like between 2018 and 2023, those 5 years, I only coded in Scala and I made $500,000 a year or more every year there for 5 years, like just coding Scala and pipelines. So like I also kind of feel like I owe Scala a little bit, because that, you know, Scala paid me like a couple $1,000,000. So like I can't say that like fuck Scala, right? Because it's like it was super important for my journey to grow. But that being said, like for the industry at large, it's just not that popular, right? But in big tech, it's more popular. Like at Netflix, and especially Netflix and Airbnb. Facebook is not as much about it. Facebook is really about SQL, like Spark SQL is more about what Facebook's about. But like, yeah, that's going to be kind of the idea. Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's see here. Yeah. This Husky. Yeah. I'm not gonna make the stream private. Yeah, for sure. We can definitely. It'll come back around 100%. So yeah, everyone in here. I'm still answering questions. I'm gonna be here for about another hour. By the way, I'm gonna be here till about 5 o'clock. So 5 o'clock Pacific. So we have a little bit more time here to just kind of vibe with each other. Let's see here. I like this. I like this question. What do you think data engineers within data science groups should focus on? Data science managers tend to not notice the PhD data scientists working heavily on pipelines and the DEs doing DS work. I think that this is like data engineers should just focus on high quality data and leveraged data sets, like finding like definitions that need to change, finding quality improvements, like those kind of things are super important. And like, obviously, like it depends on your manager and all that stuff, right? That's going to be the kind of the idea. Right. Okay. What Python concepts would you say are the most important? Lambda functions, functional programming. Those are super important. Learning how to just define functions is great. I actually don't think that object-oriented programming is as important. I think that that's not as important. I think that those gonna be kind of the idea. Ollie has asked this like 5 times, so I will answer. As a pharmacist, can I be in data engineering? Yes, 100%. Like if you spent like 8 years, 10 years studying medicine, like you should be able to definitely get into data engineering. Pharmacy is harder than data engineering for sure. Like, okay, what is the best CI/CD tool to learn right now? GitHub Actions. GitHub Actions is just wrecking everybody. I used to say Jenkins here, but GitHub Actions is just like so far and away better than freaking Jenkins. So like definitely GitHub Actions. Hopefully you're on GitHub. What would be basic and advanced tips when creating pipelines? Well, basic tips are going to be like, make sure that you have good queries. Make sure you put your where clause up in the pipeline to filter as quickly as possible and leverage predicate pushdown. Advanced tips are going to be like, fix your logging. Because a lot of times, like you actually probably, if you have good logs, like your pipeline will be much, much, much simpler. But fixing logging is also a much more complicated problem, because it's a problem that is more like, it's more organizational. It's less technical and more organizational. So like you aren't going to be able to solve that as easily. I mean, I've seen so many data engineers like just fail at solving the problem because they don't have the soft skills necessary to like, you know, persuade and, you know, get their point across. Right. Okay. You're saying like, how do you become certification? That's a decent way to go. An online master is probably going to be better. Like doing like a master's in computer science is probably going to be like the right thing to do if you want to like have something that's long-term and steady, because you can do a master's in computer science in like 18 months. And then you'll be way ahead of all the people who think that you can do it in 3 months with a boot camp or 6 months with a boot camp, because like a lot of times those boot camps promise stuff like that, but they can't really deliver. That's why my boot camp is mostly for experienced data engineers, because like I don't promise like, hey, you can break in from my boot camp, because I don't believe that that's true, especially because my boot camp is so short. Like I think that my boot camp would need to be like 4 times longer if I wanted to make that guarantee. There has been a bunch of people who do that, but like, okay, this is a good question. How do I reduce compute costs within cloud? Couple things. One is a lot of pipelines actually don't need the entire data set. They just need directionality. So sampling is a very solid way to go. You just process less data. That's actually, I remember I saved like $1 million a year at Netflix as being like, hey, we don't need the whole data set here. We actually only need a 1% sample. So I was able to reduce the cost of the pipeline 100x. Then you have like other things like, how are your joins doing? Like what does Spark look like? Like how are the, what is, can you optimize your Spark jobs? That's another one. Deleting Spark jobs, like deleting old pipelines, deleting stuff that is not being used. That stuff is very good. That's a very solid and easy way to get some wins. I always say like the only thing better than optimized is deprecated, because like then if it's deprecated, then it costs zero, right? And so that's great. So I think that those are, and then other things are going to be on the other side, because like one of the things that I think people forget about is that like really the most expensive part of data engineering is not compute, it's actually IO, right? I think that that's going to be kind of the idea, right? So if you have IO, that if you can minimize your output data sets, then you can like from there, you can minimize IO, and that will save you a significant amount of money as well. And the ways that you can do that is like, you just got to really have a good understanding of Parquet, like Parquet file format, and like how Iceberg and Delta Lake kind of compact things. It's a good question. Did you quit the idea of having a subscription-based version of your bootcamp? No, I definitely still am working on that. I waited on that because I wanted people to buy V4. I want to get through V4 before I do any subscription-based stuff. Like even right now, if you buy like the self-paced course right now is essentially a subscription. It's a 1 year, it's an annual subscription. That's what the self-paced course is right now. And so like, that's essentially what it is. And the monthly subscription is going to be more like in terms of like cost if you just stay on the monthly. Right. So I think the monthly is going to be like 200, 300 bucks, something like that. It's going to be 200, 300 bucks a month to like be a part of the community. And then the annual one is probably going to be like 1,500. So like, yeah, like if you buy annually, you're going to save like half. Right. So that's kind of the idea. This is a good question. What aspects of the DE job did you like the least? On-call. On-call is terrible. I hated like waking up at 3 a.m. to fix pipelines. That shit is freaking obnoxious. I think that other things like stakeholders not understanding that like data pipelining takes time, and that like it's better to wait a week or two and have a more robust pipeline than having a piece of shit pipeline today. Because I think a lot of stakeholders don't understand that. Like there's a battle there between business velocity and engineering stability that you have to have. You have to strike a very good balance with. That was something I hated at Facebook, because Facebook was very about business velocity, and they were like cut corners, build shitty pipelines, and then everyone would just build shitty pipelines, and that made on-call bad. But then like Airbnb was like the opposite. Airbnb was like, you know, like engineering stability. And then like that also kind of annoyed me, because then it was like, it took so long to like ship a pipeline, right? Like I was shipping like half as many pipelines at Airbnb, because like the process to actually like get a pipeline into production like took a lot longer. But because of that, on-call was better and it was less heinous. And so like that's why I liked Airbnb more than Facebook, because of that, right? It's like if you spend more time upfront building higher quality pipelines, you won't spend all this time in on-call just wasting your time, right? So that's going to be the way to kind of go, right? Okay, it's a good question. What is better than Spark structured streaming that handles streaming data? Well, Spark structured streaming can't do continuous processing. It's really close. It's really close. I think it might be ready. Or it's very early. I think Databricks is going to release that soon. It's a battle between Flink and Spark structured streaming. They kind of go back and forth between the two. I think that like those are good options. I also just like the Kafka APIs are actually pretty good too. Like the Kafka consumer API and the Kafka producer API. Those APIs are actually pretty solid as well. So like, I mean, don't sleep on those. Don't feel like you have to like always build like this highly scalable, crazy thing. Like, because a lot of times, like if you just need to read the data and dump it somewhere, like that, then you're good, right? So, okay, let's see here. Okay, I guess 2 people asked this question. How important is DSA for data engineering? Like, it's pretty important. Like, learn it. Like, you're gonna be. I in every single data engineering interview I have ever had, I have had a DSA question. So yeah, it's been in 100% of interviews I've had. So that's my perspective on that. This is a good one. Thanks for great content. It helped us speed up fact table loading and make it idempotent, saving a ton. SCD daily processing is way cheaper and faster. Any pointer for reloading multiple years? I mean, you can do like the kind of the backfill process, right? Where you have a separate query that loads that in. I don't really like that because I like just loading it in. Like, can't you just do a backfill process where you just do it one day at a time, and then you just like build up the SCD, and then you just, you have to run like 1,000 or 2,000 jobs or however many you're trying to build up. But like that might be better because I like that process better because then how that data set was generated in backfill mimics how it's generated in production. So then like you can be like, when people are asking like, how was this data set generated? You won't be like, oh, it's just generated by this like query on the side. It's like, no, it was generated with the same query as production. So yeah, for sure. It's a good one. I hear you talk about logging a lot. Do you think it should be a part of ETL processes? Yes. Like I think data engineering, like a lot of data engineers look at the pipeline as a tool. They look at it as a hammer. And they think that like with every problem is a nail that they need to hit with a hammer, and that's not always the case. Like solving things with logging is great because then all those nasty case when statements and the weird shit that like you end up having to solve for in your pipeline actually gets solved for above, right? So yeah, Hamid, you're asking like, is there a coupon code? Yes. So I'll put that in here. You might not be able to see it, but it's ZACH15, ZACH15. That can get you 15% off the course. So you can save a significant amount of money that way. Okay, wait, this one. Do you need knowledge of non-data stuff like web app servers or load balancers to crack system design around? Sometimes. Like, I mean, like I've definitely had those. At Netflix, I was definitely asked a lot of things about Cassandra and about load balancing and about like all that stuff. So yeah, for sure. You need to understand like it depends. It honestly depends though. Again, like I hate these questions sometimes because like companies can ask you whatever the fuck they want in a round. And so you may or may not need to know these things. It's just like the companies where you need to know these things are the companies that do not distinguish between data engineer and software engineer. They say that data engineers are just software engineers. There are companies like that. Airbnb is like that. Netflix is like that. So is like Robinhood is like that. OpenAI is like that. And so, yeah, definitely know that like there's a bunch of things there. I say I have a fan. Make sure to breathe, right? I think that's going to be a big thing. Make sure to breathe. Make sure that you have studied your SQL and don't grind too much, right? Just like go to bed early. Make sure to go to bed early. Make sure to not overdo it on caffeine. I've definitely noticed that. Like I fucked up an interview one time because I was just like so like revved up from too much caffeine. So like that's a big thing. I think other things here are just like make sure to think about where like what your stories are. I like to refine my stories. Like what was your impact story? Like think about a time that you were given feedback and you made a change. Like, really try to nail those freaking those behavioral rounds, right? Because if you can really wow people in the behavioral round, that's great, right? What are your thoughts on data mesh and data lakehouse? I mean, I like data lakehouse. I think data mesh is like still a little bit out, a little bit far away. I think long-term data mesh probably makes sense, but the data lakehouse is great because it's like, okay, we have this data lake, but we need it to be higher quality. Cause like, I feel like the data lake pattern, like turned into like the data swamp pattern. And then the data lakehouse is like, hey, like we also have like, we need high quality data in the lake as well. Not just garbage. Right. And so it's kind of like, how there's all that plastic in the ocean, like there's all this plastic in our data lakes. And then we're like, wait a minute, we want to clear out a little bit about this so we can do a little bit better. When is the market going to get better? I wish I had a crystal ball to tell you. I mean, my guess is that things will improve over the next 18 months. So like by not this November, but next November, I would imagine that things are going to pick up. I've noticed things picking up a little bit. I feel like it's better now than it was 4 or 5 months ago, at least in terms of like the number of recruiters who are reaching out to me for roles. Like, and so like, and obviously like staff and senior roles are a little bit different than like junior and lower, like, lower experience roles. So it's a little bit different because like I always think that that's what's so crazy about Airbnb. If you go look at Airbnb, it's like they have like 30 roles open and they're all for staff engineers. They're like, yeah, we'll hire people, but you have to have 10 years of experience. And it's like, damn, dude, that's freaking, you're not going to give anyone a chance, not even the guy who has 8, right? Like, geez, right? So, okay, let's go to, yeah, okay. Do you view a GPT tech as an opportunity or a threat to the data engineering field? I think it's a massive opportunity. And I know Databricks and Snowflake see it that way as well. That's why they're investing so heavily in Gen AI and building out things. Because I think Databricks and Snowflake, they both realize that like they have all the data because they are working with companies and they have all of their company's data, all of like the company specific data. And a lot of companies are kind of privacy focused, right? And they don't want to just like ship all their data to freaking OpenAI because, you know, OpenAI is like, you know, I don't know, they have their own set of problems and like they don't want to just do that, ship all your company secrets, right? So Databricks is going to allow people to like build their own GPT-4 level stuff, but like specific to their company. And I think that that's something that data engineers are going to take a massive part in because that's what data engineers are all about, building high quality data, like and dumping it into places that make it consumable. And I think that Gen AI and chatbot is just going to be like another, you know how like data engineers, like a lot of times they will, they're going to create vectors as well. Oh yeah, 1 second, y'all. I will let me fix. You can hear me now, right? We good? We good? I think we're good now, right? Okay. Yeah, it's kind of just died, right? Still no audio. Okay, not better. Weird. Okay. Let's freaking go with. Hello, hello, hello. Testing, testing, testing. Is that better? It might be like, yeah, it's freaking madness. It's still out. Like it's still gone. Like my ears. Wow. Okay. Like freaking now very loud. Oh, what the hell? 1 second, y'all. Sorry about that. Like I don't know what the fuck's going on. Maybe like quit Loom. Sometimes Loom is like gets in the way, you know. 1 second, y'all. It's gonna come back. I know it's gonna come back. Oh, it's back now. Okay, great. I want it to be the freaking mic though, the Shure mic. Okay, there we go. Now we should be good. Sorry about that, y'all. Okay, we're back there. Okay, so anyways, let's go back to like comments. Oh, that was freaking so many comments. Right? Okay, let's go with this guy. Can you tell us more about your startup and how you see Gen AI and enterprise versus consumer? I mean, like, so I love my startup. My startup's Data Expert. I freaking have been building it. We're building a platform to teach people. I use Gen AI in my startup. I was actually able to have fewer employees in V4 than I had in V3 because we do automatic homework grading with Gen AI, right? Right? It's been freaking it's great. Like and like so I think that like there's going to be a lot of opportunities there of like tasks that can be automated and things that can be like just improved, right? And just get rid of, right? Like I mean, I know for me, like one of the things I'm creating is this platform called Tech Creator. And so what Tech Creator will allow you to do is it gets all of your transcripts and it gets all of your like posts and videos and everything, and it gets all of that text into a vector database. And then we use Llama 8B. Llama 8B is like an open source model that Meta came out with, right? So, you know, Meta's great. Meta's like they're better. I think Meta is the real OpenAI. So yeah, this is a good question. What are homework questions like? No, I hate multiple choice questions. Multiple choice questions do not teach you shit. They teach you nothing. Right? No, my homework, you have to build stuff. You have to submit queries. Like so in my bootcamp, you have 10 homework assignments and they're all pull requests. You have to do pull requests, right? And so how it works is like you open a pull request and then the generative AI will look at your change and it will tell you if you successfully did the homework or not. So yeah, no, I hate multiple choice stuff. It's not good at all. This is a good one. You wrote about the WAP pattern on your blog. I was wondering, how would you add the staging data to prod if it passes? Do you simply write to staging, read again, audit, and the append upsert? Yeah, I mean, like, so yeah, like there's a couple ways to do it. That's one way to do it. If you are more fancy, you can do a thing called a partition exchange, where like you don't even have to move the data, you just move the sim links. So like you move, like, so it's like it was in the like the location of that file gets moved into the production table, and then you just have to point it right. So yeah. How much does your course cost in countries like India? So I offer a 75% discount in India. So like it's like $400. I think 400, $500, something like that. Any recommendations on to get practical Spark experience? My bootcamp. Just to let everyone know, we are using 5 to 6 tools and homeworks. You can pull your hair if you don't know basics, right? Thank you, Madhav. I'm so glad that you're here, right? Where did you get most of your data engineering knowledge? I worked in data engineering at Facebook, Netflix, and Airbnb for 7 years. So yeah, that was like long time, just big tech. Like, I mean, and before that, I worked at Teradata, Think Big Analytics. And those are going to be the other places where I also freaking learned a lot. That's where I kind of like learned the basics, and then I got really good at Facebook. And then I feel like I learned the basics at Teradata, got good at Facebook, and then I got really good at Netflix. And then at Airbnb, I kind of coasted. I feel like I didn't like really get much better at Airbnb. I feel like at Airbnb, I like more like learn more about leadership, right? Yeah, great question. Discount for Brazilians ads. You get 50%. Like, so it's like $1,000 in Brazil. What are your thoughts on product sense questions for your data engineering interviews? Is it necessary for data engineers? Yes. I feel it's so necessary. I wish every company asked product sense questions, because like so many data engineers just like take orders from data scientists and they take orders from data analysts, and they don't actually freaking like they don't actually like think about like, wait a minute, is this good for the business? They don't even think about that at all, right? They just freaking like write the pipeline, and they don't think about how the data and the data set would impact the pipeline, right? So yeah, 100%. Okay. What made you quit those high prestige companies to work on your own thing? I knew I could make more money. I knew in my heart that I could make more money, 100%. And I knew in my heart that I wanted to. Okay, I'll give you the idea. So like when I quit Airbnb, I remember like the story here. So in 2022, I worked really hard at Airbnb, and because my goal was I wanted to become principal. I wanted to be a principal engineer, which is like, principal engineers at Airbnb make like $1 million a year. And anyways, like I wanted that really badly. And so like in 2022, I saved Airbnb like $15 million, $20 million from my improvements on pricing and availability. And one of the main things that I did was I actually made it so that Airbnb was a little bit more expensive in most areas of the world. And people were like very grateful. They were like, Zach, you're doing such a great job. And then like I had like an existential crisis, because I was like, is this actually a good job though? Is that what I want to be known for? Is like, hi, I'm Zach Wilson. I made Airbnb more expensive and made a bunch of money. Like, is that really good for the world? You know what I mean? Is that like really the impact I want to have? And so like, I was like, nah, I want to do something else. Right. And so at least initially I wasn't 100% sure that I was going to make more money, but like I had an inkling about it. I had an inkling that things were going to get better. And and then now I know for sure, because it's like, now it's like, I'm operating from a place of genius every day now. Right. Whereas at Airbnb, it's like there was all this other bullshit, right? You have all these meetings and all this other shit that you have to go to that like I just didn't like and I didn't enjoy, right? Whereas like now I get to work on things that I enjoy like most of the time, right? And that's the other thing that you got to realize is like, how do you want to do your job? How do you want to live your life? Like, do you want to live a life where you're just like slaving away at a company just because like it's Google? Is that what you want to do? Is that how you want to live your life? Like, because it all depends on like what your goal is in life, right? Is like, if your goal is to make a lot of money, I've already made a lot of money, right? I'm a millionaire. I have freaking tons of money, right? And it's like, okay, like that's great, right? But like, I don't know, like freaking, is that all there is to life? Like, I don't think so, right? There's other things that you can do and like other impacts you can have, like this Q&A, right? I mean, there's tons of people in here. There's hundreds and hundreds of people in this Q&A right now. It's freaking madness. And so like, that's going to be probably what motivated me to leave, right? Okay, so how different is your on-demand course from live courses? They're almost the same thing. The main difference is that the live courses, like obviously you have the opportunity to ask me questions live, whereas like if you're doing on-demand, you don't. but like we have people who can help you. There's TAs and GAs and stuff like that who can answer your questions in the Discord community. So that's another thing to think about, right? So let's see here. This is a great question. I'm currently a senior data engineer. Any tips on how to get to staff and then principal? So with staff engineer, you really need to operate at that next level where you need to have a project that is very cross-functional. It needs to impact like multiple teams at once. And sometimes it's very difficult to actually get that project because your manager might be putting you in that senior data engineer bucket and they're not giving you that opportunity to actually have that impact because they really believe that you are great at being a senior engineer, but they don't want to take the risk of like giving you more kind of responsibility. So part of it is like you need to understand who your manager is, and hopefully your manager is down to like give you that opportunity. And so a bunch of things there, like a big difference between senior and staff is senior engineer. You can be absolutely excellent as a senior engineer by just writing good code and knowing a lot about Spark, right? And knowing good pipeline work. As staff engineer, you also need to be able to identify projects. So that's going to be another big thing. Identifying projects is super important. Because like that's a thing I think that's probably one of the biggest behavior changes is senior engineers are expected to deliver high quality work. Staff engineers are expected to identify high quality work. So can you actually find the opportunities in your company to like land impact? And that change is actually something that's why between senior and staff, that's the hardest promotion is senior and staff. It's actually easier to go from staff to principal than it is from senior to staff because of that behavior change of going from like, I'm gonna do the work that's given to me to I'm gonna find the work to do. That is like a very big shift that you need to do, a big behavior change, right? So yeah, see here. I'm currently a backend engineer and about to start a data engineering role. What should I learn to make this transition? Cron, Airflow, distributed compute. Make sure you know data lake stuff. Like, do you understand like Iceberg and Delta Lake and Databricks and all that stuff? I highly recommend those technologies. They're really freaking dope. What about this one? How should a startup know when to upgrade their tech stack, Visual Cron to Airflow for orchestration? I mean, like you don't really know. A lot of times, like you don't want to upgrade until like there's like suffering. That's usually when you want to upgrade is like when like the previous solution no longer works. That's going to be when you're going to get the biggest like that allows you to like not just be migrating all the time. But it also depends because like you might have an engineer who wants to sell that vision and get ahead of it, right? And have architecture that's going to scale. And then you don't have to like frantically upgrade when things don't scale. So like that's another thing to think about. This is a very hard question to answer in terms of, because I need more contextual knowledge about the startup to really have a good answer to like deliver that. Cause it's very contextual on like when you actually want to upgrade. So how do you deal with people on the business side that just want everything real time? They actually don't. Usually hourly pipelines are good enough. Like if there's a 1 hour delay, like the business people are usually pretty satisfied. So like if you can meet them in the middle there where it's like, don't do daily, don't do real time, but like do hourly, that is, I've found that to be a very solid way to like solve their problems without really increasing the complexity on your side, because the difference between daily and hourly is not very much. The difference between hourly and real time is very different, right? Because you go from a pull architecture to a push architecture, where you have to like listen to Kafka as opposed to just pulling the data down every hour. And so those are going to be two very big differences. What text editor IDE do you recommend? I love JetBrains. I have been using JetBrains for the last 10 years. I also like VS Code. I think it's really like you're either using VS Code or you're using JetBrains at this point. I mean, there's probably a couple other options out there, but that's going to be probably about it in terms of stuff. See here. Are you a quick learner? Like, how did you learn all these things in data engineering in such a short time and switching companies? Yeah, I love learning. Learning is my favorite thing in the whole wide world. Like I recognize that is my skill. That's why, nowadays I know marketing, I know freaking sales, I know content creation, I know data engineering, I know full stack development, I know machine learning engineering. Like I have a freaking, my skill set nowadays is absolutely bananas. And like, I'm still really young, I'm 30, right? So like, I'm still freaking really young, and I know I have a lot to learn and a lot to grow from. And like, I know by the time I'm 40, I'm going to have another 3 or 4 skill sets underneath my belt that are really good and really powerful. And some of them I don't even know what they are yet, because in 10 years, like, where the fuck is technology going, right? There's going to be some new stuff that I'm going to have to do, right? See here. Okay, this is a good one. What are your typical testing strategies for transformations when delivering new features, fixing bugs? So usually you're going to want to do a couple things. Like, The big one is testing the pipeline and writing out to like another table, like a test table. So then you can do a table diff. So like you make an update to the pipeline and you dump to a test table, and then you do a table diff, right? And then that's going to be probably the most important. I think the second most important is then doing like a unit and integration test. So then you build like your own fake input data and fake expected output data, and then you run the pipeline in an isolated environment to see like, hey, if the pipeline has these inputs, we expect these outputs, and then that is another great way to freaking do it, right? Okay, this is a great one. Databricks, Redshift, Snowflake, marry, fuck, dislike. So marry Snowflake. I mean, no, marry Databricks, fuck Snowflake, dislike Redshift. Redshift's terrible, dude. Like, that's like the one thing on AWS that I'm like, why do y'all still support Redshift? Like, it's freaking not good. Like, I don't know. I've never had a great experience with Redshift. Are you going to save this live? 100%. Like, I've already been live for over an hour, y'all. I'm not just gonna like throw away this time, right? What's your workstation setup? I mean, I work on a very expensive MacBook Pro. I have a MacBook Pro that has 128 gigabytes of RAM. I bought it like a couple months ago. Last year I was getting so spendy. I spent like $20,000 on MacBooks like back in December because like I was like, we got to get the best ones. And so all my engineers at my company work on MacBook Pros with 128 gigs of RAM. It's freaking madness. Okay. How do you deal with people that spend most of their time hating on others on the internet? Ignore them. Understand that like if you are spending a lot of your time hating on the internet, like you aren't a very happy person yourself, and that like that is going to be the main thing, right? Is for haters on the internet, I mostly like feel sorry for them because it's like I'm spending my time to try and enrich people's lives, and then they're just shitting on me, and it's like, thanks, bro. Like, why don't you like, you know, try to like make the world a better place? And like they're like, nah, like the most productive use of my time is to shit on other people, right? And that's like really sad. Like if you think about it at like a fundamental level, they're like shitting on random strangers on the internet, right? Okay. One more time, which language do you suggest for DSA? Always do Python. Always Python, never Java. I have a story here real quick. So like I didn't know Python when I interviewed at Facebook. Actually, I'm a very like JVM person, right? And so I did my interview in Java at Facebook. And that was the last time I ever did an interview in Java, because the problem with Java is that you have to write a lot more code, right? Because of all the static typing. The static typing slows you down and makes it so that you can't solve the DSA question as quickly. So like you want to just be able to write the least number of lines of code and the least number of characters to solve your problem. And that's always going to be in Python, always. Because Python that's what it's all about, right? Is like the least amount of code that you have to write. And so like I've always done all my coding interviews in Python since 2016. So like the last like 8 years. Where did you get that hoodie? Freshhoods.com. Who's the bootcamp targeted to, like experienced or beginners in data engineering? So I like both, right? I mean, I find not really beginners. I find that like my bootcamp, like generally speaking, we have people who have 2 years of experience to 10 years of experience. Like that's kind of the meaty like bell curve of people. There are some people who do take it as beginners, but like they struggle, and those are the people who are the most likely to ask for a refund. Those are the people who are the most likely to not like it, because like we just start the very first day of the class, we just start in very intense SQL, right? It's very intense SQL where we talk about complex data types like structs and arrays and all that stuff. Like you'll see my most recent video on YouTube covers kind of like what the very first lecture looks like, and understand that the lab is as intense as the lecture is. And so like that's going to be kind of why I don't want someone who has no experience, like no absolute beginners. If you have like a year in SQL and a year in Python and it's not professional, but you practiced it like in college or something like that, then you're probably a good fit. It's just like if you have never coded in SQL, not a good fit. Let's see here. Okay. When you make transformation pipelines, do you go case by case or start with a general case? I mean, always you want to think about things at a higher level first, right? Because it's like you want to be thinking about like not just like one use case, right? You want to be thinking about like, okay, can I make this pipeline and solve 10 different business problems at once? Because if you can do that, if you can have those like that multi-dimensional data pipeline, that's called robust data modeling. So if you can get good at robust data modeling, that's when you're going to really have data sets that are great. Oh, this is a good one. Like, how long can you go without mentioning your salary? I haven't like been paid a salary in like over a year, fam. Let's see here. I'm a fresher currently working as an analyst. How to transition to DE? Focus on software engineering. Focus on Python. Python in particular is going to be probably the thing that unlocks a lot of what you're looking for. SQL. You need to get better at SQL, especially like other things, not just select. If you can understand insert into, insert overwrite, if you can understand delete and update and all that shit and merge, those are going to be the things that are going to really kind of create, like, because you're not just reading data, you're going to also be like inserting and creating data, like as a data engineer. So let's go. What are some data quality checks you do? Is there data? That's a great one. Is there any data? Like every pipeline should have that. You'd be surprised. Well, weird. So that's gonna be one. Another one is like duplicates. Are there any duplicates? How many rows are there? Comparing week over week row count. Always do week over week. Never do day over day. Because the problem with day over day is like if you have like Saturday versus Friday, there's gonna be something that is like weird, right? Because it's like the weekend and the weekday might have just different behavior. But usually if you compare Saturday versus the previous Saturday, like you're going to be in a much better spot. So like those are good checks. Like make sure that your emails are emails, your phone numbers are phone numbers, right? Make sure that columns that are null they can be null, things like that, right? Do you use Linux for data engineering? Yes. I mean, that's why I like Mac, right? Because Mac is Unix. Unix, Linux are freaking really great. And so I think that that's going to be where you're going to like have a really solid time. Yeah, it's a very important part of data engineering because like essentially every like Spark cluster is either running Ubuntu or CentOS. So like you need to learn about SSH and Bash and SCP and, you know, all those things. Like those things are super important. Like, especially like if you're at a company that doesn't have a really solid data platform or they're not on Databricks or anything like that, then like you really need to know Bash for sure. Bash and Linux. Right. Mention something very few people very few people know in data. Okay, let's think about that for a second. So I think that some very few people know in data. Okay, so there's going to be a lot around like how pipelines are idempotent. I feel like idempotent is actually pretty rare. Maybe like a couple % of people actually understand idempotency at a pure level. So the whole idea behind idempotent pipelines is the pipeline is going to generate the same data, whether you run it now or you run it in a year or you run it in 5 years, and you get the same input, same output, like depending on like if with the same input parameters, right? And I think that a lot of people like I've seen senior and staff engineers like fuck this up, right? And like then they cause all sorts of weird problems in their data sets because it's kind of hard to catch. Right. So I don't know. I think idempotency is like a weird concept that like I teach in my boot camp. But like, yeah, let's go look. I've heard lots of people saying only Fang uses the concept of one big table. How true is this? There's not a very solid way to freaking verify that, right? I mean, I feel that like one big table is actually pretty solid and that more companies should use it. Like you can save a lot. It's dumb to think that like, oh, this concept, just because it's like it's used at Fang more, because Fang gets a bigger benefit from it because like the bigger your scale, the more benefit you get from one big table because the less shuffle happens. And like you only really need to care about shuffle minimization when you're at a big enough scale, right? And that's why like one big table is not as important at companies that are smaller, right? But with that being said, like other companies are growing and like freaking, you know, there's going to be companies out there like Tesla. I'm sure Tesla uses one big table and they're not Fang, right? So like for sure, because they have petabytes and petabytes of data. Like it's not really about Fang. It's more about like how much data do you have, right? Like, okay, as someone who has been an analyst for a couple of years, heavy SQL every day, how do I make the next step? My biggest issue is understanding that data lives in an API and how to easily interact with it. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be doing some stuff about that, about like how to ingest data from like REST, from like a REST API. I actually have that. I'm making a video about that in the next like month or two. Like, especially once my boot camp's over, I'm going to have a lot more time for that, right? Okay. So how is the bootcamp preparing students for real world data engineering roles? So a bunch of ways. So one is my lectures. I talk all about like pain and suffering that I experienced over the last, 8 years in data engineering. So I speak from a place of experience. I speak from a place of like, oh, this is going to cause a problem. This is going to cause a problem. So part of it is like a lot of the content is rooted in my experience. Another thing is that there's homework that is difficult. The homework reinforces a lot of the stuff, and it's going to teach you all sorts of really important concepts that are used in big tech and in smaller companies as well. Yeah, for sure. And then you have to do a capstone project at the end to deliver like a high quality pipeline that should help you get a job in the end, right? And then if you do all of that, then you have you qualify for mentorship, and then those mentors will then teach you how to interview, and they will help you, maybe even give you a referral to get you a job. Hundreds of people have used my bootcamp to land jobs or land raises already. So like definitely that's going to be the things to remember. Okay. Why is Python so prevalent in DE? Isn't it slow and mostly single threaded? So Python is very popular because DE doesn't like Python is popular because it's very easy to learn and very quick and very minimal. And like DE overcomes the limitations of Python by using wrappers. So like PySpark, for example, PySpark doesn't actually use Python very much, only in like UDFs. In a very small percent of pipelines does PySpark actually use Python. It actually is Python that calls Scala, and then Scala runs, and Scala is the high performance language that runs. And that's very common. Like you see the same thing with Polars. Polars is Python that calls Rust, and Rust is highly optimized and fast. So DE, like the only parts that are slow are going to be like Airflow, but like that's just saying this task run, then this task, then this task, right? It's only like orchestrating the task flow, right? So that's going to be the kind of the big thing that like can be slow because it doesn't need to be fast. But the actual data processing layer is not very often actually running Python like at the bottom layer. The bottom layer is almost always a high performance language, whether it be something like C++, Rust, or Scala, right? This is the next one. What all topics you cover in the bootcamp? We cover slowly changing dimensions. We cover one big table. We cover reduced facts. We spend 2 weeks on data modeling. That's like a third of the bootcamp is all just about how to create good data sets. We also talk about how to make very compact data sets. We spend a long time talking about compression and Parquet file format, and you get really good at Apache Iceberg. Then we shift gears and we talk more about Airflow and how to build high quality pipelines using things like write, audit, publish, and also things like unit and integration testing your Spark pipelines. Then we spend a week on Spark where we talk more about like how to work with parallelism and skew and how to like manage your Spark pipelines. Then we spend a week on Kafka. That's the week that's coming up tomorrow. That's the week that we're going to be doing then. And then the very last week is we spend a week on LLM, vector database, fine-tuning models, and RAG is kind of that last week, right? When writing pipelines, do you lean towards OOP or functional? Functional. Like, I don't know, like OOP is just like not that important. I mean, the one exception here, I guess, is like a case class or a data class in Python. Those things are kind of nice, but I don't really consider that like object oriented because it's just the freaking schema, right? But like, I mean, mostly functional for sure. Okay, this is a good one. Is it often the case that you should write Scala UDF to run in PySpark if you want fast UDF, or is this case it would be better to write the whole in Scala instead? Probably write the whole thing in Scala is going to be the better way to go because like adding that UDF, you'd have to add it to the base layer. So you have to use this thing called extra jars. So you'd have to build like a separate library that you need to add, and then you would be able to have access to that in PySpark. But that's like not like, that's a pain in the ass, a gigantic pain in the ass. It's much better to just like write it all in Scala and do it that way. Cause like, it's actually pretty rare that pipelines share UDFs. It's not that common. Like, I mean, it's like maybe like 2% of pipelines actually do that, right? So like, I mean, and also PySpark UDFs aren't that slow as well. Like they're actually pretty reasonable. They're a little bit slower than Scala UDFs, but like, honestly, I think that whole concern is a little bit overblown. Like, unless you're working at some ridiculous scale, right? Okay. Is Tech Creator live? Not yet. Like I'm still working on the onboarding flow of getting that working so that we can have other people. I need to get the onboarding flow working and Stripe Connect, because I still only have like the one Stripe thing. So like right now, like if you did Tech Creator, all the money would go to my Stripe account, which is not what you want. You want to have your own Stripe account. And so like I need to have that set up as well. So I need Stripe Connect and then the onboarding flow to be a little bit smoother. And then we will be able to launch. And I'm really, really excited for that because I hope by the end of the year that like, so I'm launching a full stack development bootcamp in about 2 weeks. So or the sales will open. The actual bootcamp is going to launch like July 5th or 6th, like right after the 4th of July. It should go in July and then the beginning part of August. So we're going to be doing full stack development where we're going to cover things like how I built dataexpert.io, how to get good at Next.js, how to learn about like asynchronous programming, like, async await, how to get good at that, how to learn about Node.js, all those things. Like it's going to be really great, really exciting. How to build a project. Like at the end of that bootcamp, you'll have like a full like functioning web app and project that you will be very proud of. So like anyone else have any other kind of questions? I'm still here to answer. Okay, let's see what else we got here. This is a good one. How would you pivot from being dependent on stored procedures and trigger functions for an OLTP application? Purpose is to put less on a Golang API and let the DB do calculations. So like, I mean, I think I would need a little bit more like stuff here. I think a lot of that is like the stored procedure stuff, like a lot of times can happen more like in a queue, right? Where it's like, it's kind of like change data capture, right? Like CDC, that's going to be a really solid place that you can kind of move this stuff to, where it's like you have an API that writes the mutation to a queue, and then you just read that queue in, and then you store that somewhere. Because a lot of times that's what stored procedures and triggers are doing anyways. They're just like, when this thing happens, then we want this to happen. And like I use a lot of triggers in my database for DataExpert. They're nice. I think that like that you might want to consider like why you want to move, right? That's going to be, but that would be how you do it, right? Is because you still need something that's like pub sub, like a queue, because that's what triggers are all about, is like how to do things instantly. But yeah, this one. So we have Next.js is a massive topic in itself. Do you consider Quick with SSR? I mean, we definitely use server-side rendering all over in Next. That's the whole point of using Next. I have no idea what Quick is. So, but like definitely we are going to be using server-side rendering as much as possible, but also showing people how, like, where are the edge cases where server-side rendering actually makes your app less performant, and when you want to use like dynamic imports to speed up your application. We're going to be doing all sorts of stuff like that as well. I say here, analyst for 3-4 years, really bad at math, but decent at analytics. Can I continue being at math and pursue a career in data engineer? Yeah, for sure. I don't think that you need to be very good at math to be a good data engineer. I definitely haven't been asked very many math questions myself in data engineering. So yeah. So Renan, what's the website for the full stack bootcamp? We will be launching that soon. I still need a little bit more time iterating on the Tech Creator platform. So before we are ready to go, but Dan Bowden is going to be the lead instructor on there. Okay. What percentage of students normally can enter mentorship sessions? So you have to get certified, right? And certification is about 20%, 15 to 20% of students get certified. So it's like 1 in 5 do it, because it's like, if I gave it to everyone, I would not make money. Because it's like, it's $2,000 and I pay the mentors $1,000. I pay the mentors $1,000, and then I pay my bootcamp staff another $700, and then I make nothing, right? And so, like, yeah, for sure. Like, it's like, that's why I make it difficult, right? That's another thing to think about. Like the bootcamp gives you, if you give in, right, and you give it your all, then you get all the rewards. So the self-paced version of your course offer homework evaluation. Yeah, if you do the self-paced course during a bootcamp, then yeah, we will do that. I do not have full-time graders. I do not have people who are dedicated long-term on that. So, but we have LLM auto grading. That is really great, right? It's freaking great. Like, I think that's going to be something to think about. Okay, will you make follow-up DE courses to cover other areas of DE? Maybe. Like, I'm kind of burnt out on data engineering a little bit. Like, I've freaking made a lot of content and courses here, and I feel like V4 is really solid. Like, I've really spilled my soul into this version of the bootcamp, and it's really freaking good. But yeah, I'm going to cover other areas of DE over time. Like, I know for sure I will. Because I just have such a solid brand there. And I know if I make more content there, that'll be important. But I also am seeing my role kind of shifting a little bit, where I want to also inspire other creators to make their courses and build their topics. And I ultimately see myself like kind of shifting a little bit away from data engineering and shifting more into like a kind of a creator leadership role. That I think will also be really awesome, because then I can scale myself and we can create more content together and we can build things and like sell things. Because like I don't have to teach everything. You know what I mean? It's actually better if I don't, right? So that's going to be the kind of the whole idea. Okay. Do you think Lakehouse will completely replace data warehouse in the future? No, it won't, because so many companies are going to be on-prem for so long. And obviously you can have a data lake that's on-prem as well, because that was what Hadoop was all about, right? But I don't think it will completely replace data warehouse. Data warehouse has its own, for example, here's a great example of one. So the data lakehouse is great, but the problem with data lakehouse is that the access controls are usually not as good as if you have a traditional relational database. That is an important thing, right? So when I worked at Netflix, I actually worked with this database that was all of the compensation data, but that was not in the lake. That was all in a very secure Postgres instance. And there will always be very sensitive data like that needs to have very limited access. And that data will never go into the lakehouse. And so that's where there's always going to be data warehouse concepts and data warehouse methodologies, because of the fact that they are they're the easiest to lock down. And so that's what I would say. Okay, so did you say you were Mormon? Ex-Mormon? I don't know. I grew up Mormon. I quit believing in the Mormon church in 2004, 2005, and ex-Mormon now. Let's say, how would you go from Suite to Data Engine if you start over? Just SQL and Python. You already have a lot of the other skills. If you know how testing and freaking all of those kind of good dry and wet code and freaking all those other kind of methodologies, then you already are well on your way to getting into that data engineering role. Because there's such a big overlap between software engineering and data engineering that if you're already a software engineer, that's the easiest transition. It's the easiest transition. It's a lot easier to go from software engineer to data engineer than it is to go from data analyst to data engineer, right? How much does your bootcamp cost in Portugal? Portugal, I think, gets 20% off. So whatever that is, right? Okay. Why my post appear as LinkedIn user? My streaming software doesn't freaking capture LinkedIn users. Every LinkedIn user, I think, is like that. Okay. What do data engineering interviews usually entail, and what does the day-to-day work look like? Data engineering interviews, you have the data modeling round, which is mostly, can you work with facts and dimensions? That's the big thing. You might be asked a spicy question about one big table nowadays. You have another round about data structures and algorithms, which is can you code? You have another round about data architecture. So it's do you understand when to use streaming and when to use batch? Different types of how are you processing the data? Is it are you processing it every day, or are you processing it as it comes in? And how do you ensure quality in different places, right? There's this whole Lambda versus Kappa kind of architecture stuff. And so that's kind of the big thing. Then there's another round usually on SQL, and there's sometimes you have 2 rounds on SQL. It's so disgusting. I hate when there's so many rounds on SQL, but you have rounds like that. And then there's usually a behavioral round to make sure you're not a fucking asshole. And then after that, you'll get the job. And that's going to be the day-to-day is a lot about building pipelines and building data sets that allow the business to make decisions based on facts and make the decisions based on information, and not make decisions based on hunches, which is really powerful actually, because you prevent a lot of really stupid shit as data engineers, because you empower the business with information, which I really like. How did you get good at public speaking? Mostly from trying and just putting myself out there, and just doing that stuff. And I'm not actually that great at public speaking. I'm good at this because I'm just sitting in my freaking, apartment right now talking to y'all. Whereas if you put me on a stage, right, say I was actually talking to a crowd of 1,000 people, I would be a nervous wreck. I would not do that as well. I'm not as good at that yet. I know that ultimately I will get good at that, because that's going to be part of my life, is I know I will be speaking on stages and I will be doing that. But that is definitely that's one of the areas, that's a growth area for me for sure. Right. That's going to be the whole idea. Right. Let's see here. Yeah. Do you have a startup idea for the future? That tech creator is really the one that I'm trying to build out, because I really think that tech creator is going to be really powerful, because like it gives you so many things. So like in the end with tech creator, like, so what it allows a creator to do is it allows them like the long-term vision, right? So here's the long-term vision of tech creator. So tech creator will allow a creator to sign up, and then they can generate their own Discord community, and then they can also create their own course. And then if they upload all the videos, they can upload their videos, they can upload all their social media content. And then what that does is then you have all of this text data, because like we also get transcripts of all the videos that you upload. And then that's going to be the kind of the way to like when you have all of that data, then what we're going to do is create a model for you, a fine-tuned model that is like can answer questions and sits in the Discord. So then you have like essentially a TA that can try to answer a lot of students' questions. That is it's trained on the data that you taught, right? And it's trained on your social media data as well. So you can like have a essentially an LLM that is you, or it's like a second pair of hands. Right. And then other things that it allows you to do is in Discord, it tracks all of the engagement in Discord. So then you can reward the students who are the most engaged and the students who are building your community. And that's a very important part, right? Because I always reward students for the students who do the best, the students who freaking do all that stuff. Like, yeah, it was great. I mean, and I think that there's a lot of power in the future of tech creator. So I think I want to work on that for a while. I think ultimately I will build something else long term as well, like some other project that will like, because I think for me the other thing that I want is I want to work on something where I have a founder, right, like a co-founder, because I think that's one of the things that is a little bit tricky, right, is that like doing everything yourself is tricky. I am someone who is powerful and I can do everything myself. I can do the sales, the marketing, the hiring, the, you know, the finance, like all that shit. I can do it. Right. But like that's going to be trickier. Right. So let's see here. I think I saw a TikTok that said you used to be addicted to drugs like LSD. How did that happen? And what about that drug? Do people like, because it scares me to think about. First off, you can't really be addicted to LSD. That's like wrong. That's like wrong to think about actually, because LSD is actually not very addictive. Because what happens with LSD is like if you take LSD like one time, you're going to have a great experience. But say you wanted to take it the next day, then you have to take twice as much to get the same high. And then the next day you have to take twice as much as that. So like your tolerance grows exponentially with LSD. So like after 4 days, there's really not an amount of the substance that you can take to still get high, because you have to take a break. It forces you to, right? And so yeah, and I was never addicted to LSD. That was never something I said, right? Yeah, it's stimulants, dude, like amphetamines. That's where you know, dopaminergic substances like amphetamines and cocaine and stuff like that. That stuff is going to be where you like are. There's a lot more of a addictive potential that you can do it every day because your tolerance doesn't build as much. We say when will the next DE bootcamp? Early 2025. So like 7 months. Like, because I need to travel the world. I need to do a world tour. There's a lot of things that I need to do before the next boot camp. And a lot of those things are showing up in India, showing up in Tokyo, showing up in Dubai, right? It's freaking, I need to do a lot of those things as I'm like, because I know that those things are so important to like do those big events, because those things like really help people like know that I'm a real person and I'm not just like a person on the internet, right? So for Hadoop ecosystem, how do you recommend, do you have any recommendations of performing data quality checks the same way? Like you schedule jobs with Airflow and then you run write, audit, publish. And yeah, it's going to be, that's the main way to do it. Like great expectations and use quality checks the same way. Are you going to be having a meetup in India? Yes, 100%. That's a goal this year. It's going to be, I've never been to Asia before, so it's really scary for me, but like, that's the whole point, right? Is I want to do things that make me nervous and things that make me, I know that I will grow in that way. What do you think of Dagster? Dagster's great. I mean, like, I think that like, there's like, it's hard to distinguish these things, right? Between like Airflow, Mage, Prefect, and Dagster, those four, right? Like, because it's like, how many ways can you put a set of tasks together? You know what I mean? Because that's all they're really doing, is they're all just building a DAG, right? And that's what's cool about like some of these technologies, is that they kind of all kind of stick together and whatnot, right? Let's see here. When is the next live? I'm going to try to do these like twice a month or something like that. Cause I like to do like less often, but longer. Right. Where in India, it's probably going to be Bengaluru. Like, I mean, I feel like that's the only place that I really need to go to. Right. How do you stay so productive? It's inspiring. I mean, it comes back to like relying on habits and not on relying on motivation. Because I think a lot of people rely on motivation, which is a terrible thing to do. And like a lot of people are like, Zach, how are you so motivated? And it's not really about motivation. It's about like, if I'm sad, I'm gonna work. If I'm tired, I'm gonna work. If I'm freaking, upset, I'm probably going to work, right? I mean, there's some exceptions. Like, I feel like if I'm like processing grief or like I'm going through a breakup or something like that, and I need to like really listen to my emotions, I will take a break because I know I need to do that. But like, I have a goal of like, I need to work 2 to 3 hours every single day. Like, it's not that much time actually, right? But like, because I show up every day and I'm fresh and those 3 hours, I fucking crush it, right? That is why I win. Right? It's because I show up every day. Right. And it's like, y'all don't show up every day. Some of y'all take a lot of breaks. Some of y'all probably take breaks for weeks at a time and like just fall behind. Right. And it's like, if you want to do that, you can do that. But like, that's not how you win. Like, I'm going to show up every day and crush you. So that's just how it works. Right. And it's like, if you want to compete with me, you got to do that too. Right. And so that's why, I've been able to post every day on LinkedIn for 3 years. Right. Because it's like, it's not that crazy because then you need to rely on systems as well. Right. So that's going to be the other thing is like systems is freaking super important. Right. This is a good one. How important is working out for showing up every day? Those things I couple, right? I'd like to do those things together. So usually for me, I like to do the body work first because like whenever I like run or lift weights or anything like that, I feel like a beast, right? I feel like when I go for a run, if I go crush a 5K and I do it in 19 minutes, right, which is faster than 99% of the world, right? And then I come back and I'm like, I'm a fucking beast. I'm a beast, right? Because that like, it just gives, and it's only 19 minutes, right? It's not that long. It's not a big investment, right? And so it's like, if you do that, then like you can come back and you're just like, wow, like I am fast, I am powerful, right? I can do anything I put my mind to. And it's like, that's where it's like, if you treat your body right and you treat your body with like the respect that it deserves, that is when you're going to be really powerful. Because that's like, I noticed a big increment for me when like I decided to start taking my body first, right? That's going to be the big thing. This is a good one. What if you get hurt while working out? Do you work through it? So you shift to active recovery, right? So if I'm running and I pull my hamstring, right, or I like hurt I hurt some sort of joint, right, then what's going to happen is I shift to yoga. Yoga is another very important part of my journey. I shift to yoga and weights because the odds that I have both my upper body and lower body hurt at the same time are freaking not very high. I do not accept crypto payments right now for the bootcamp. I am sorry. How did you get job in Fang? I mean, by working my ass off. I don't know. Like, I hate those like general questions, bro. It's like, that's a very, like, you need to ask a more specific question. Cause like, that's a very thing to do. Right. What data modeling tool would you recommend? SQL. I find data modeling tools, like the best data modelers, they don't use tools. They write the code themselves. Right. How many hours you sleep? 8 hours, sometimes more. Like, I like to sleep. So for me, I usually sleep from like midnight to like 8 or midnight to 8:30. That's like, those are the hours that I'm in bed. And then, I wake up a little bit later than most people. Most people wake up at like 7 or 6 or whatever. The people who wake up at 6 are freaking crazy. But like, 8, like, cause it's like, if you freaking like have less, like if you sleep less, right, then like, you're just worse. You're just worse. And all it does is make you less productive. Sure, you get 2 hours back, but then what happens is your other hours, they are 50% as good. So you actually so you get 2 more hours, but then you give up 10 by not sleeping enough, right? So it's great. So if you sleep 5 or 6 hours, right, that's what happens, right? Is that's how much you lose, right? It's not worth it. Like, sleep is one of the most important things that you need to get right? So like, it's freaking. Okay. Do you know what data engineering is like for DEs that work in the public rather than private sector? It's slow and freaking kind of terrible. I mean, I kind of worked in the public sector a little bit. I worked for a military contractor that had some like public kind of regulation stuff around it, right? So it's like, there's a lot more red tape. Like, the technologies are a little bit behind. There's no cloud. Like, it's a lot of like freaking on-prem shit, right? Would you still work out when running low on sleep? It depends. I would not usually, or like I would be mindful, right? And I would maybe, instead of running like 4 or 5 miles, I run 1 or 2 miles. I really always try to get at least 15 minutes of like exercise in, like 15 minutes where my heart rate is elevated, even when I'm feeling like shit, right? I won't go run a marathon when I'm running low on sleep. Definitely not, right? See here. Do you think individuals getting into data engineering now should be concerned about the current job landscapes with the state of the economy and layoffs in tech? I mean, like, why does everyone have so much fear, uncertainty, and doubt, dude? This is literally every other question I get, because people are so scared about the future. And it's like, just learn AI, learn it. It's like, okay, it's like, oh my God, AI is going to take my job. And then it's like, okay, why don't you just learn AI to do the job? Right. And it's like, I don't understand why that's not something that like is easily and obvious to people, is that like, there's always going to need, AI needs an orchestrator. It needs someone to like point and be like, do this thing, then this thing, then this thing. It's not very good at like coming up with grand master plans itself. And maybe that will change, but I don't see that happening in any time in the near future, in the next 5-10 years even. I think that like things are going to kind of slow down a little bit, because like you notice how like OpenAI did not release GPT-5, right? That's great. Yeah. Let's see here. You already shared tons of posts, but would love to hear any tips for people looking to switch jobs in this horrible market. Patience, like get referrals, like make content, have a powerful brand, support people, make friendships, because those friendships are going to be what get you those referrals, and those referrals are what are going to get you actually into interviews. Because a lot of times like a referral is more powerful than having all of the job requirements. Actually, like a referral is usually going to be what you're going to get in with, right? So okay, this is a great one. You play basketball? I was on my middle school team. I actually wasn't, because I got my height really early. So like I was like 6, so I'm 6'2", right? And so like, but I was like 6 foot when I was like 15. And so like I played center. Usually center or power forward. And I like points in the paint, and just like I'm a defensive player, rebounds, layups, all that shit. Do you think vector databases are here to stay? Yes, because they're like, vector databases are the most powerful way to like capture contextual information, right? They're going to be here for a long time. Okay. What happened to the analytics engineering course on your website? Has it been deprecated? I merged the two things, because like for me, I ran one, like you can take the course and it has all the analytics side. It was not an analytics engineering course to begin with. It was freaking the analytics track of a data engineering course. And I got rid of it because I didn't want to run two courses, like an analytics course and an infrastructure course. It was like not worth it. Like it didn't make more sales. Like it didn't do that, right? And so like, because it didn't make more sales, like it's like, okay, like, and most people just bought both, right? They bought the combined bootcamp, right? And like 90% of people bought the combined bootcamp. And so I'm going to focus on that, right? Yeah. So let's go with, do you think DE can become millionaires based on the salary? Yes. Especially like if you invest early and often. If you invest 20% of your salary every year, like you will get there. Like you will get there for sure. 100%. Like, I mean, I don't know if you don't live in the US, it might be different, but like I really think, and a millionaire is going to mean less in the future anyways, right? Because of inflation. So like, I think most people are going to be millionaires. Like in like 50 years, I think everyone will be a millionaire, right? Because the money will just not be worth anything. But like, yeah, that's great. Let's say here, an escort in Las Vegas makes 1K per hour. Did you already get to that number? I mean, they're not having sex 24 hours a day though. That's the problem, right? So it's like, for me, it's like, okay, like if I'm making $1 million a year, right? That equates to like $500 an hour, but that's like working full time. And this escorts aren't going to be getting that. Like they're not doing this full time, and so that's going to be the difference, right? It seems like Neo4j is the future. It's one of the best graph databases. I did a big, giant, like exploratory analysis of Neptune, Janus Graph, and Neo4j when I worked at Netflix, and I just kind of determined which one of them was the most suitable for the graph database that I worked on at Netflix. And Neo4j, it was great. It was actually the best option, but it was also like a lot more expensive than the other options. So like we ended up going with Neptune actually, because we had a deal with Amazon, and you know, Neptune is the Amazon one, right? Yeah. Let's see here. Oh yeah, I mean, OnlyFans girls are gonna make tons of money, dude. Yeah, they make me look poor, 100%. That's just the nature of the beast, right? The difference is that my career will be a lot longer, right? OnlyFans girls get 10 years, I get 50. Also, do you have anything to say about folks who's solutions sales engineers with a DE background or solutions engineers who focus on DE? So great question. I mean, like I love sales engineers, people who freaking like who are good with people and then they like become engineers and then they are able to do both, right? Right. It's going to be like really powerful stuff because data engineering is still a very collaborative effort, right? It's not really as technical as people like make it out to be. Like, and there's still a lot of like collaborative effort that needs to happen, and like that's where the wins are, right? The wins are in like the conceptual layer of like what should we build, not like how we should build it. Like there is still a lot of wins in how we should build it in terms of like optimizations and stuff like that. Where having good technicals is very good, but like that's going to be something that I think will kind of come around, right? This is a good question. Did I ever work with the Primeagen? Like, I want to. He's great. I mean, we didn't really have as much overlap. We didn't have as much overlap at Netflix as like I would have wanted because like he was software engineer. I was a data person, right? So like, and I worked in security, right? So just different freaking things, right? So let's see here. This is a good one. Opinion on DE solution architect, like what folks are doing for customers at Databricks Snowflake. I mean, I think it's a great role. It's essentially like being a paid consultant, right? You're like a consultant for companies, right? Or you can just do that kind of the other way, right? It's like if you worked with Rahul Pandya at Facebook. Yeah, he was mobile, right? He mobile had data. Like it was like, I mean, the only person who I actually worked with, the only other influencer that I really like actually worked with was Nick. I don't know if you know Nick Singh, the guy who did like Ace, the data science interview. Like we both worked on core growth data analytics back in like 2017. Like, so we actually did interact with each other. But like, I mean, most of the like, I don't know any other like influencer that I really had any overlap with or that I remember. Right. Other people think I like always worked with like Frank New, because me and Frank New actually did have like 2 years of overlap at Netflix. But like, yeah. Have you solved LeetCode? Yes, tons. I've probably done like 100, 150 questions. I haven't done like all of them, right? Because I think that's a little bit ridiculous, but I mean, it is what it is, Let's see here. Is the day-to-day work at FANG companies more stressful than at other companies? I think the stress is different. I think it's just different, right? Because I feel like when I worked at other companies, I feel like my stress was mostly around the fact that like I just felt like this company wasn't going to go anywhere, right? And I didn't have any like long-term growth prospects, which is stressful. I think at big tech, the difference is like you have that growth trajectory. It's great, but the stress comes from expectations. Like the stress comes from like you need to get a lot of work done, right? You need to get a lot of things done to actually like get that growth trajectory. I do think that a lot of people in FANG they make it more stressful on themselves than it needs to be, because that's how they select people, right? They kind of select those types of people, the people who put a lot of pressure on themselves to succeed, the people who really want to like climb the ladder and be the best person they can be. That's definitely 100% something that happens in big tech, but they don't have to. I mean, like, for example, at Airbnb was a very chill job. I think in my whole time at Airbnb, I had probably like 1.5 months where it was like pretty stressful. And then the other 2 years was just a vibe. Right. And so like it really does. You can't put all the FANG companies in one bucket. Like generally speaking, Amazon and Netflix are going to be more stressful. And then Meta, Apple, and Google are going to be more chill. Like generally speaking, obviously that like it does depend on the team and like where you're at, like the role. But like generally speaking, that's how I would think about it. General question maybe, but do you think it is the future of remote work? I ask because your courses would be great for folks who want to break into tech but don't live in major cities. So I think that remote work is the future in some regards, but also not, right? I mean, my company is 100% remote. I'm the only employee in my company who lives in California. So like all my employees live in freaking like Chicago and Boston and India and stuff like that, right? So like, I mean, but like the problem is like remote work is also less efficient, especially when you have people across many time zones. Like it's just less efficient, and so like you want to be careful with that in particular. But yeah, okay, let's see this one. What's the difference between data analyst, data scientist, data engineer, and machine learning engineer? That is a very fucking loaded question. So data analysts, data scientists are more like focusing on like the what is happening, trying to understand like understanding the business from like a kind of an investigative perspective. Data engineer and machine learning engineer are more builders. They like to machine learning engineers build scalable prediction systems. Data engineers build scalable data systems, and they work together a lot. Like I worked with a lot of machine learning engineers at Airbnb, where like there was machine learning engineers that worked on smart pricing, but they needed good data to make good predictions, and that data was I supplied that data, and that's like kind of how it works. Like kind of bounce back and forth there, right? What is usually used for monitoring the data stack? Are there any centralized monitoring systems for data stack? I mean, it really depends. I mean, my data stack, I use like CloudWatch on AWS. That's one way to do it. You can also use like Datadog. Datadog's pretty good. Like, I mean, it all depends on like what you're talking about in terms of monitoring. Like Airflow does a pretty good job too. You just go to your dashboard and you're like, hey, look at all these green squares. Green squares are good. Right. And I mean, that's another way to do it. Right. Please give a roadmap and learning sources, YouTube channels for topics. Just Google Data Engineer Handbook. Google Data Engineer Handbook. You'll find a GitHub repo that I made that has like 10,000 stars that has all of that. So that's what you're going to want to do. All right. How would you manage super unstructured data like PDFs, docs, etc.? So it all depends on what the fuck you're trying to do with it, right? I mean, like if you're just trying to like manage it and just store it and just put it on S3 and call it a day, but that's usually not what you're trying to do. You're probably going to try to turn that into some sort of tabular usable data that you can actually like enjoy. And like that is going to be like a lot of times, like there's a couple things you can do there. Like usually what you want to do with unstructured data is you want to use machine learning to turn it into structured data. So like you use like some sort of like, so for example, like a big common thing to do with text, right? And so you have text and you want to extract the entities, right? So it's like, does this text mention Barack Obama? Does this text mention all this stuff, right? So like that's kind of like you want to pull those features out, and you usually use machine learning to pull those features out, and then you kind of convert the unstructured data into some sort of like tabular data, and that's gonna be the approach that I would take in terms of like managing that. But it honestly depends. I would need more information on like that, right? Airflow is booming. What is the best channel to learn? Mark Lamberti, and Astronomer do great. They make great content on that. My bootcamp is also pretty great for that though as well. So like if you want to like learn more there, that's good. I mean, I don't know about like YouTube channels. Like I don't really follow other YouTubers. I just make my own content. I mean, the only YouTuber I really follow is Primeagen because I really think he's great. He's really great. I freaking think that he's going to be like really, really solid. All right. And he's just like a really great person to learn from. What's the best way to build tables so that they can automatically add in new columns? Use Iceberg. Iceberg allows you to do that, right? Iceberg allows you to freaking do that in a way that like allows just all sorts of really powerful things, right? And definitely use that like or another data lake option, right? Freaking like Delta or Huddy. They're all the same for the most part. Iceberg, Delta, and Huddy are like the same thing for the most part. It's a little bit different, right? How great is Python versus Java when it comes to data transformation? Java is going to be more performant because Java is just like actually compiles to machine code. It's a compiled language, whereas Python is going to be an interpreted language, and Python is just notoriously really slow. But like Python is generally speaking what data engineers are going to use because like you don't really need a lot of speed for data transformation because you're not in a low latency environment, right? If it takes a minute or it takes 5 minutes, it doesn't matter, right? Whereas like for a customer, right, it matters a lot, right? If like your website takes 5 minutes to load, most customers are going to fucking leave, right? So like it's different for data engineering though, because like your pipeline, if it takes an hour or 2 hours, usually it doesn't matter, right? Do you think Data Lakehouse actually benefits users or just a marketing term Databricks used to differentiate itself from stuff? Like, I think it definitely benefits users. Like, I mean, like, it's kind of a marketing term. Like, I think Data Lake, like an Iceberg and all that stuff is like, okay, like how are you like enforcing quality, right? It really comes down to like, are there quality constraints or not? Because you have Data Lake, which is like no quality constraints. And then Data Lakehouse is like, okay, we're going to put in some quality constraints. That's essentially the difference. But like that's like data lake with quality constraints is like, it's kind of a marketing term, right? But like, I mean, it's kind of back and forth, right? Let's see here. I want to enter into data engineering, but all the jobs expecting 3 to 4 years of experience. Can you help me out in this situation? Yeah, like get a good project rolling, maybe get an adjacent role, maybe get a role that's more a software engineering oriented that is junior. Because it's like, just get a technical role. And then that usually, if you can get a technical role that is a data analyst or a software engineer role that like is junior, then you can usually build into a data engineering role. And there are junior data engineering roles out there too. They're just kind of rare. They're just kind of rare. I mean, I got a junior data engineering role at Teradata, but that was like 10 years ago, back when it was super, super unsaturated. So things are just different now as well. Are data platform jobs a thing? 100%. Like, I love, that's what essentially what I did at Netflix was I shifted from being a data engineer to being more of like a data platform kind of guy, right? Because I worked on like a graph database that like a lot of different applications like consumed and stuff like that. And then there's always like, all the big tech companies have like 10 guys who are working on Spark and making Spark better and how to make Spark jobs faster and more reliable and how to tune things better and how to automatically optimize things. Like, those data platform jobs are great. There's a role, or there's a team. There's a team at Facebook called the Diet Team, which is Data Infrastructure Efficiency Team. And they just are completely just working on the platform, right? They just work on like, okay, how do we make Spark better? How do we make all the different like cloud stuff better, right? And so definitely it's great. It's great. This has been my last question, then I got to get going. I've been on this for 2 hours. It's been a vibe though, y'all. I'm a blockchain engineer, want to switch my field. So I go with data engineering or data analytics. Yeah, just pick. I mean, those data analytics and data engineering are very related. So like as you kind of go into it, you'll realize that there's a lot of overlap between the two. It's probably a little bit easier to get into data analytics than data engineering. But like if you're already a blockchain engineer and you already are decent with like Rust or Solidity, then like picking up Python should be pretty easy, right? And so like if you learn Python, then data engineering is the way to go. If you want to just be obsessed about SQL and like communication and visualization, then maybe data analytics is the better way to go. But yeah, everyone, thank you so much. Make sure to like subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm going to be publishing a lot more videos over the next couple months. I'm really excited. I have a very strong goal of getting to 100K this year. I want to definitely get to 100,000 subs. I want that silver plaque this year. That's going to happen. I definitely want everyone to just be here. And I'm going to be, by the end of the year, I'll have taught you guys a lot. I'm going to be releasing a lot more quality content that is free. And I'm really excited to just give back and build more community here, and just know that I love you guys and that like I really, really appreciate your time and energy and effort and all these really great questions.